Configuration. The behavior of an ASP.NET application is affected by different settings in the configuration files. Machine.config, web.config. The machine.config file contains default and the machine-specific value for all supported settings. The machine settings are controlled by the system administrator, and applications are generally not given access to this file. An application, however, can override the default values by creating web.config files in its roots folder. The web.config file is a subset of the machine.config file. If the application contains child directories, it can define a web.config file for each folder. Scope of each configuration file is determined in a hierarchical top-down manner. Any web.config file can locally extend, restrict, or override any settings defined on the upper level. Visual Studio generates a default web.config file for each project. An application can execute without a web.config file. However, you cannot debug an application without a web.config file. In this application, there are two web.config files for two projects, that is the web service and the website calling the web service. The following code snippet shows the basic syntax of a configuration file. The web.config file has a configuration element as a root node. Information inside this element is grouped into two main areas: the configuration section handler, declaration area, and the configuration section settings area. Configuration section handler. The configuration section handlers are contained within the open tag, config sections, close tags. Each configuration handler specifies names of a configuration section contained within the file, which provides some configuration data. The basic syntax for the configuration. Clear. It removes all references to inherited sections and section groups. Remove. It removes a reference to an inherited section and section group. Section. It defines an association between a configuration section handler and a configuration element. Section group. It defines an association between a configuration section handler and a configuration section. Application settings. The application settings allow storing application-wide name-value pairs for read-only access. The connection strings. The connection string shows which database connection strings are available to the website. System.WebElement. The System.WebElement specifies the root element for the ASP.NET configuration section and contains configuration elements that configure ASP.NET web applications and control how the applications behave. It holds most of the configuration elements needed to be adjusted in common applications. Anonymous identification. Authentication. This is required to identify users who are not authenticated when authorization is required. Authorization. It configures the authentication support. URL mappings. Defines the mappings for hiding the actual URL and providing a more user-friendly URL.